Yo, had to make sure we got ASAP Ferg's bars in there. That was very important. Andrew, that was a great song recommendation, man. I'm pumped right now. Andy, how we doing, man?
Dude, I'm vibing, man. I'm in Eastern Europe, so it's 6 p.m. I've been running my days here on an interesting schedule, like wake up at 11 and work till like 9. So it's been good. I'm doing good. How are you, man?
Bro, I'm doing so well. Thanks so much for joining us, man. You've been grinding out there. You've been crushing. You've been interviewing everybody. You've been going to all these events. I mean, we're super fortunate to have you, and we really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, bro. You guys are doing great as well. It's a pleasure to be here. It's fun to be on the other side of things, you know?
Yeah, dude, you're running like 4-hour, 5-hour long spaces, man. That is like crazy, crazy, crazy. So I'm sure it's nice just to be a guest, let somebody else take the reins for a little bit. So yeah, dude, just sit back, relax. We got some questions for you. You know, just this is all fun, man. So we're gonna have a good time.
Vibes.
Cool. Well, look, just to get started, you know, if you wouldn't mind, like, you know, having a little introduction, providing a little background on who you are, you know, why you're still in crypto after all this time, you know, just give us a little context on who Andy is.
Yeah, man. I tweeted a bit about this today as well. Like, I actually tweeted that I was trying to go to med school in university when I was in Florida, and I got a C plus in chemistry one, and that kind of backtracked all my ways to going to med school. And then from there, I kind of decided, like, all right, well, I got to figure out how to make some money online and start a business. And I just never really wanted to do the same path as everybody else. To me, the only path that seemed reasonable was going to med school. And you know, that was just like the best option at the time. And yeah, so I just kind of started doing some online business work as I found some guys on like that money Twitter realm. It's kind of interesting. Twitter has all these different realms. The worst one by far is political Twitter. That shit sucks. Um, and yeah, so I found these guys on money Twitter and started just kind of replicating what they were doing, talking to them, figuring out how to do like email marketing, copywriting, sales, stuff like this. And then yeah, man, went all in on that kind of realm, and found myself about a year and a half out of that after dropping out of university, really interested in DeFi, and kind of saw what some of the Bankless and Defiant and some of these other really cool media companies were doing, and you know, tried to kind of look at that and look at what was happening in DeFi and figure out what the best path forward was. So yeah, I ended up taking all of my capital that I you know, had earned from those other online businesses and had this personal brand on Twitter and just full pivoted into DeFi. And yeah, so it's been a good 3 years now, and it's been interesting last year and a bit, but yeah, things are looking up, man. So vibes are up, and having a good time.
Bro, 100%. I mean, look, if you take the same path as everybody else and you do the same thing that everybody else does, you can probably expect to get the same results as everybody else. So, you know, that's not really what we're looking for. And, you know, I do kind of want to ask you, too, you talked about this online persona you've built, and you've got a Pudgy Penguins PFP there. You know, is there, what's the reason out of all the NFT collections that you could choose? Like, why a Pudgy?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of like the builders PFP. At least that's what Luca's been marketing, and I respect it. I think it's you know, I think it's cool. I think they're cute. I think girls love them. I met this really sweet girl at the Pudgy Penguins party in Paris. Like, you don't see that very often at DeFi events, I'll tell you that much. So that was pretty solid. And also kind of more like on the financial side, I met Luca in November, December at this Pudgy Penguins event in Miami. We talked a lot about e-commerce and kind of how he got started, and I was just pulling up with crazy energy there as per usual, and you know, we really hit it off and talked a lot, and kind of I was explaining to him how I see the community growing, some things like that I'd like to help, and you know, he invited me to invest in the seed round, and I mean, to me, it was the easiest investment ever. They're absolutely destroying it, and I think I'll look back in a couple years on that one, and that'll be a home run. So you know, 23 years old, put a significant chunk of change behind the team, and you know, we'll rep that for for a long time until the $5 billion Disney exit. So it's coming soon.
I like that, man. Look, we've had Luca on the show before. We love Pudgy. Met a lot of the team as well. So yeah, dude, definitely good to have conviction out of all the projects out there. Really excited what they've already done and what they're going to continue to do as well. And speaking of builders, you talked about Pudgy Penguins being a builder. You're kind of building the Rollup. What is the Rollup? What is the mission? And how can people get the most out of the research and education that you're providing?
Yeah, so we started off as DeFi Slate doing like really solid educational content. I mean, that's what it's all about, man. Like, I've been in the space for some time. And I've seen a lot of the crypto YouTubers kind of go up and then go down. And, I've just seen a lot of poor content and not really educational. And I wanted to basically make it really easy for people to learn DeFi back in the day. And so we started off doing some really beginner level things like when Uniswap was live and Compound started liquidity mining, yield farming, doing like the most basic tutorials, which are still there on our newsletter and on our Substack, which we have actually ported over to a new site. But yeah, so we did that for 2 years. We did 80, 90 podcasts or so, tons of tutorials, and really just wanted to educate people and learn myself. I mean, that's what Rob and I always say is like, we know that if we're learning on our content that we're creating with these people that are so smart, then our audience is also learning. And so like that's really like our main goal is to like make content that we get to learn on. And so the way that I viewed it is like it's been like this profitable DeFi. It's been like a scholarship to the University of DeFi. It's just been like absolutely fantastic business. Sure, I could have started other businesses. I think at least I'm confident in my abilities to have that might have scaled better, that might have better exit quality, or that might, produce more revenue, especially in the last year or so. But nothing really beats like the networking, the learning, the fun, and I think that I'll outpace quite a bit of those other businesses come the next bull. So it all just kind of lines up for us to be like a main educational hub, make some money along the way, but really learn and educate ourselves, on the for the better of everybody in the community. So that's kind of like the mission and the premise. And we saw recently 6 months ago or so, we were in a rough spot with some, kind of failed other business ideas in DeFi, some kind of rough partnerships, things like this. And we were just kind of on our last leg, really. Like Rob and I have been tight since like the beginning of university, so like 5-6 years ago, and always been interested in the same things and kind of working together. And we were just like, man, we're basically at a point where our content and our brand is really well known, but we're not hitting anybody that is still around. Like there was just a subset of DeFi power users, not really any new users coming on. And it was just kind of like at a point where we needed to niche down to be able to better serve people that want to work with us on a paid basis, and also better serve our community. So we decided, after a couple of weeks of just kind of basically chat GPTing ideas, and throwing them around and coming up with ideas for what is best, and also understanding like where our ethos lies. And we came up with the Rollup to focus on pretty much Ethereum scaling, but just all general scaling of DeFi and blockchains. And so yeah, long story short, just are focusing now on layer twos on Ethereum. We're really interested in what's going on IBC, Cosmos, and just overall scaling of DeFi. And yeah, it's worked out. We went from like no business 3-4 months ago, really, like we were pretty basically zero revenue and just kind of living off bull market gains still, to like kind of being in over our heads now, especially after ECC. So it's been good. And our forecast for kind of our growth as far as audience and connections and revenue looks pretty fantastic going into Q3, Q4, and then next year especially. So that's kind of the Rollup. And yeah, we're doing just a lot of education, man. That's our main mission. And we are working with teams who want to help educate. And we've found that like that's pretty much it's one of the biggest needs in the space, and we're happy to fill it, or at least do our part.
100%, man. And look, being willing to pivot is important as well. Like some people kind of get stuck on that hamster wheel of thinking that working hard is, equaling progress. And that's not always the case. So shout out to you guys for willing to take a chance in a different direction. I love what you said about the scholarship to the University of DeFi, man, because that was like me in January, bro. It's like I had been making some memes or whatever. And then it's like you join a decentralized exchange and you're like, holy smokes, the whole other side of this industry is actually super cool and interesting. And I got a lot of studying to do. So I love that. And you mentioned L2s as well. Like I know you guys are focusing on scalability. Is that the main reason why you guys are focusing on L2s?
Yeah, I mean, I just think like we had the crazy alternative layer one realm last bull market, and I just don't think that those projects are as quality or as long lasting as kind of Ethereum is. I don't want to just be an Ethereum maxi, but that's kind of where our head was at, is aligning with kind of Vitalik and the Rollup centric roadmap, and just understanding that we need to onboard users into frictionless environments that are cheap, fast, and really easy to kind of use. And a lot of the best builders and innovations, and also just hype and profit opportunities, are happening on L2s currently. And yeah, I mean, that's where we want to be focused in for a couple of reasons. First being that ethos that I kind of said, like we're definitely like decentralization maxis, slightly libertarian, and have that focus. But also, we think there's that profit opportunity for us, for our community, and for everybody involved to get ahead of the curve on everything that's happening in layer twos. And we had this idea 6 months ago, and this last month we've seen Mantle go live, and Linea, and ZK Sync has a bunch of hype, and Tyco, and Arbitrum's and Optimism stack, and like everyone's focused on layer twos. And like I don't know who's talking still about Phantom, or like some of these other chains. So I mean, no disrespect to any of those other ones, but it's just been our core focus, because I think that's where the best builders are, and it's the safest, most secure environment to onboard, the next wave.
Savage, man. And what about this? Rollup, ZKs, or both?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask anybody from the ZK world, they'll say that optimistic rollups stand no chance. But then if you look at the current TVLs and the current users and devs, it's all happening on optimistic rollups. So, I listened to a panel with the co-founders of ZK Sync, Arbitrum, Tyco, Metis, and ZK EVM, Jordy from ZK EVM, and they were all basically taking a big fat crap on Arbitrum, on Harry, for being a optimistic rollup. And Harry was just kind of laughing because, Arbitrum's absolutely killed it. They have insane amounts of TVL and are currently like by far the best execution environment. So yeah, I think currently optimistic rollups are the solution, but I kind of share this with a lot of other builders in the space, that ZK, is going to be like the end all be all, at least in the time frame that we can see. But it still, remains to be seen how that happens.
Yeah, Andy, hopefully can you hear me
Yeah.
okay? Yeah, so I agree with you, and I think I'm familiar with Arbitrum. But I was going to say, yeah, that was always kind of my understanding and learning too, was that I don't think that optimistic roller companies don't believe in ZK, and I don't believe that they believe that ZK isn't the future. I think that most of them believe it's not the future today, and for them, they're like, we will dive into that when it's ready, aka the building experience is there, the safety is there for users. So I think like there's just this big misconception in the industry that rollups and ZKs hate each other. I think everyone's heading towards the same future. It's just I feel like some folks are leapfrogging ahead, maybe to not a user's benefit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, not being EVM compatible right now is kind of like really tough for like onboarding. So that's a problem. And yeah, also I just don't think users really care. They want fast, cheap execution, and it's just kind of like the decentralization nerds and maxis that care. which are very important for the general future of the space. But yeah, just appealing to users from, just from a product market basis, like Arbitrum's absolutely dominating it, and Optimism stack is going to dominate too.
100%. Andrew definitely knows a thing or two about Arbitrum. Andy, you do a lot of research. Where does most of the misinformation surrounding crypto come from, and what is the best tactic to filter out the distractions from the alpha?
Yeah, I mean, I just think a lot of these like crypto Twitter influencer guys are just absolute garbage. I mean, not necessarily the ones who are kind of been here for a while, but there's a lot of like threadors who just don't write in really good English, and like don't have them like write these airdrop threads that get all these in engagement. It's just like, what the hell? And also, just more so than crypto Twitter, I think it's a lot of these like YouTuber guys who conduct like basically bad acting and like pump and dump on their audiences. But I mean, generally speaking, like it's kind of in all industries, right? It's kind of like this world where you have to be able to siphon off the information by yourself and understand, what is legit, who you want to follow, who you want to trust. And I think just generally for people that are coming into the space, or for people who are in the space, it's like if you're constantly seeing talks about price and about small cap tokens, and this is the next 100x, and these types of like content, instead of like fundamental analysis, there's going to be a lot of noise kind of with the former. But what's funny is like the amount of noise right now to signal is actually at a pretty good ratio because of where we are in the market. But like, dude, when the bull comes, it's like absolutely absurd how much noise there is. And you're kind of thankful to be in the state where you are currently, to some regards, because that those times are fun but overwhelming with the amount of noise. But as far as like just kind of like differentiating, I just always lean to people that have been around for a while, and that don't seem necessarily like profit driven, or honestly also listening to people who have made it. Like those guys are also pretty smart, because like they think from the lens of not what I need today, like what is going to push the space forward. And like if you can listen to people who ask the question of like not what can the space do for me, but what can I do for the space, they usually have a pretty good perspective too.
Yeah, Andy, two things I'd call out. I couldn't agree more with kind of everything that you're saying. One thing I've noticed is some of the best accounts for good alpha will actually put in their bio things like class of 2016, class of 2017. And I think they do that as a signal, obviously. The other thing that I've kind of assumed, and this is how I first discovered you, is like I've always been a big believer that oftentimes the accounts between 10 and 30,000 followers tend to be where the real alpha is coming from. And not to discredit folks with 50 plus, because I have friends like Lynn and Patrick and stuff that have larger followings. But again, those folks have been through multiple bull cycles typically, and therefore they just have kind of double the amount of followers. The other piece of alpha that I would give is I have been, and we actually have an episode with these guys from a couple weeks ago. I have been in the Alpha Scan beta, and what's really interesting about that platform is it takes all the most kind of influential DeFi folks on Twitter, scrapes all of their token mentions, and then actually compares them to the performance of those tokens against 1 day, 7 days, and 30 days. Sorry, that's my son.
Oh, good.
And then what it does is it actually ranks them based on that performance. And so what was really interesting to me in the beta access was to see a lot of my friends at the top of the list, and then a lot of bigger names with bigger followings at the bottom.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a really cool app. I saw that they were raising too, right?
Yeah, I think not to shill or anything. I think there's a public sale. I mean, you'd have to just go on their Twitter and see. But I think there was a public sale, and then I think it hits exchanges fairly soon as well. But those guys are very legit. I know them on a personal level.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, that was a fun one, and that definitely bullish on them as well. Enjoyed using their tool. You guys talked about noise. I mean, every celebrity and their mother was in the bull market. I thought Tupac was going to come back. I was like, damn, this might be the. But I guess I will have to wait. Look, you released the State of DeFi 2023, which obviously we dove into and loved that. Can you kind of tell us how you acquired the data? Did any of the data surprise you? And maybe also kind of share, how do you expect DeFi to evolve over the next couple of years after kind of seeing all this?
Yeah, Yeah, no, I mean, that was a really good report. Some of our friends at ECC put that together, and we kind of worked with putting it out there because, yeah, I mean, that kind of data helps all protocols and dApps and users and everybody. And, um, you know, a couple main points that stood out to me was one, just, users needing education that kind of further validated what we're trying to do. Another one was, like the main concerns with users was obviously around security with kind of like the hacks and the exploits, and then also just some of the points about the percentage of like net worth or asset allocation in crypto was pretty awesome to see how like there's like most people are either like all in like and fully in or just kind of barely dabbling. There's not a whole lot of like in a normal distribution, at the end of the curves, you've got like most, or in the middle of the curve, you have the majority of the population or whatever the stat is, and then 2 or 3 standard deviations to the left and to the right, you get like the very small kind of amount of stat. But and it seems like in DeFi and in crypto, as far as asset allocation, that curve's completely inverted, where you've got the middle kind of being a valley, and you've got 2 hills on the right and the left between people who have very little or no crypto exposure and people who are like basically like all in. So I thought that was a pretty interesting kind of take as well. Those are the 3 kind of takeaways that were interesting.
And Andy, one little tip for folks that are listening, and I did a tweet about this earlier. Not all security audit firms are created equal, and I'm not going to FUD anybody on the air. But I think in general, there's 2 issues. One, and a little alpha is what you'll see is when a company gets exploited, those auditing firms will make a comment like, "We didn't audit that component of the protocol," and it's like bullshit, right? But what it really boils down to, I think, is the really good auditing firms tend to take a long time. They tend to have a wait list. The blue chip standard is probably Trilobits. But what I would say to listeners is like, do your own research on those auditing firms in general, because different auditing firms will protect you at different levels. And then dive into white papers and see who they use, or dive into company websites, or even, DM them and say, who did you use? Because there are certain auditing firms that I do not trust with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, interesting.
Definitely a fair take. And Andy, just kind of want to, ask you this, other part of the question too. How do you kind of expect DeFi to evolve over the next couple of years after kind of seeing all this data? Like, is there any like predictions that maybe you have that, because you guys just go pretty deep.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing that we're looking at is the evolution of rollups, obviously. I think we see that being a big trend that's going to happen. We expect abstraction at every level to happen, right? Like Andrew was on a space with us about this, and we expect chain abstraction, we expect wallet abstraction, we expect all the complexities to be kind of abstracted away. I also expect mobile DeFi to really grow, to take a massive leap.
Hey, Andy, do you mind pausing there for a second? Do you mind just giving everyone a quick little 1 sentence on what account abstraction is in layman's terms?
Yeah, I think account abstraction basically means like you're able to take away these complexities of the traditional wallet experience, like signing and approving tokens for gas and having to wait and then do another transaction to complete. I think basically what this means is like having a change from our current wallet structure to these what are known as smart contract wallets that are able to execute a lot of the, let's say, annoyances that come with traditional wallets like MetaMask, which require multiple steps to conduct one action, that you can kind of put all of that together into one signature or one click of a button. So I think like the easiest way to think about it is taking the traditional wallet that we have now and making it into a much more user-friendly look and feel, and being able to execute transactions with much fewer steps. And that's kind of how I think about account abstraction. And then, taking that further, so now you've got this wallet that has that it's very easy to use. It's user friendly. You don't have to go through all these approvals, all these different transactions, all these signings. And then you can actually then abstract the chains to where you don't actually have to pick which chain you're on. You can just use the wallet and use the dApps that you'd like, and the dApps and the wallets will interact on the chains that make it the best experience for you from a fees and a liquidity perspective. And then once you have that kind of like set up, then you're operating in a point where you don't even really care which chain you're using, because you already know the technology is going to give you the best rate and the lowest fees possible. And so that's kind of like the chain abstraction part. And then like once we kind of have that developed, I think like the further evolution of DeFi comes from like these kind of intent-based models, where instead of even having to do a transaction and clicking through apps, you can basically just say, when I say, I mean kind of enter this in some sort of written form or in kind of a visual UI where I want to do this and I want this to be the end goal. And you almost, not that you don't care what happens in the middle, but you don't want to do all those steps. So you can get, token on one chain to another chain into a pool and an exact amount for an exact specific period of time. And then after that period of time, it can be withdrawn back to your original kind of place. So that's kind of like a very like long realm from like account abstraction to chain abstraction into intent. And I think like more broadly, like tangibly, we'll see real world assets come into DeFi a lot more. I think that's going to be a huge sector that grows. I'm expecting kind of like private and emerging lending markets to kind of infiltrate DeFi. So basically using under collateralized loans or using LSD-backed stable coins, things like this, to take those, then to deposit them into real-world asset lending markets and basically arbitrage that yield. So using DeFi to fund lending markets in the real world, I'm expecting that to kind of grow. Yeah, and then I think just like overall, just better security is something that I'm looking forward to as well. Just more resiliency and kind of eventually like less bad actors and a more resilient sound system. So yeah, those are a couple of things that I think that we're heading towards and that I'm excited about.
100%, man. Appreciate you breaking down, the account abstraction and obviously sharing your predictions as well. Yeah, definitely excited to see how it evolves. Let's dive into the report, man. According to the data, 36% of the degens first discovered the project they use most from Twitter. What projects have leveraged Twitter the best, and what strategies have you noticed are being most successful for grabbing user awareness in this industry?
Yeah, Twitter is basically like Twitter is the main social media for crypto by far. And I think that definitely makes sense that most people have found projects through Twitter. I think some of the best ones that have kind of utilized Twitter, ironically, are like the meme coins. So I think those communities have done a good job of bringing on people through Twitter. And then I think also like the big DeFi coins that have been around for a while, like Uniswap, Sushi in particular, have done a good job of bringing people in through Twitter. And I think also NFTs. I know it's a state of DeFi, but I think a lot of users have come in through Twitter because of NFTs. I think it's undeniable that NFTs have brought more people into Web3 than anything else. So like just having the act of having like a penguin as your profile picture or a CryptoPunk or those types of things, that brings huge traction through Twitter.
Definitely, man. And, shout out to meme coins, shout out to NFTs for onboarding all those folks. What about other platforms? Are you spending time anywhere else, creating or consuming? And is there any particular reason why you're focusing on maybe another platform?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of post a lot of our stuff on various platforms, but YouTube is the other main one. And I don't really mess around much on TikTok or Instagram. Just too much kind of a diversification of kind of attention for me. But I think there's a huge market to be had through TikTok in the next bull. I think right now it's kind of like not really super hot, but I think I think TikTok will bring on a lot of users, and then obviously there's yeah, I mean there's a lot of people through Instagram, but yeah, I just like Twitter because you get to share ideas in a written form, and it's pretty easy to like decipher who the smart people are and like who the people are who know that there's stuff, and it's a really good way to audit reputation because you can kind of see, like I think one of the best ways to tell on Twitter who is solid and kind of who's LARPing is just, you know, kind of who follows that person. That's a really big metric that I look at, you know, and I just like the written form ideas a lot. But yeah, I would expect TikTok and Instagram both to pick up significantly once the hype kind of returns. And, you know, I also expect content creators to grow quicker there than on Twitter because I think it's kind of easier. But I think the average value, if you're looking at it from a, like if you're trying to sell products to your audience, for example, on Twitter is much higher than like any other social network because of this, like the distribution of ideas via written form is much more potent. I don't know, not potent, but like powerful than I think like Instagram and TikTok. So yeah, I mean we'll see where Elon takes it.
Yeah, I mean, let me break out the knee pads. I mean, you know, I'm definitely bullish on Elon, man. I mean, X, you know, he's been on this X thing for a long time. So it's like, you know, he did the whole electronic car thing, and now, you know, man, the car companies are asking him for advice. So I'm long Twitter, I'm long X, whatever you want to call it. But yeah. Anyway, man, let's continue on the report here as well. You know, the data kind of shows access to better education resources were the primary concern or a primary concern for new users. You know, are there any specific resources that you can reference for people to start using, and what do good resources actually look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think education is very important. You know, it's a huge niche that um, is going to be important for years to come because of the complexities of crypto, and it just keeps getting more and more complex. You know, I think we talk to a lot of projects every day, and a lot of them, you know, are aligned with what we're doing as far as the types of education that we're trying to promote, as well as just you know, making things easier for builders, for devs, and for users. So yeah, I recommend most of kind of like the educational media sources. You know, obviously us. I like what the Defiant and Bankless are doing. They've been around for a while. You know, I like some solo Substackers. Yeah, I like that guy Lynn. I like Patrick, Dynamo DeFi, and kind of the guys who are writing and creating really solid content. You know, that you can tell isn't just regurgitated or strictly paid. You know, and really want to educate people on like how to do things on chain, why they're there, and really educating people behind like the fundamental of this. I think something to definitely pay attention to is the Zero Knowledge podcast. Very, very good podcast. You know, very, very technical, but it's super educational. And yeah.
Appreciate you sharing some resources, man. Always trying to learn more. You know, this space, you just can't stop, man. It just evolves every single day. Continuing this as well, like users also express a desire for more diverse investment opportunities beyond DEX trading and lending. What new offerings do you see being a good fit for this space, and how do you kind of see the current lending options evolving over time? I know you touched on lending a little bit earlier, but maybe just rehashing that.
Yeah. So you mean just the general state of lending?
Yeah, so essentially, just like the data kind of showed, like they kind of want more investment opportunities, right? Like the DEX trading isn't exactly super intuitive. You know, copy and pasting contract addresses and whatnot is not for everybody. And you know, the current lending market as well. I don't participate in that, but how do you kind of see, you know, maybe that evolving, and what other offerings would maybe be a good fit for the space for capital?
Yeah, I mean, I think once we get somewhere with credit, we can start to think about under collateralized lending. I think that's a super interesting one, dangerous but interesting. You know, I think there's a world where we can have this credit and reputation system that allows you more capital efficiency. But I think generally, just going back to what Andrew and I were talking about with this abstraction, I think is the key thing. Like, I think the general primitives that exist in DeFi are sufficient for any sort of economic activity that you really would want to do as an investor. I just think that like the UI, the UX, and the onboarding is a little bit difficult, and so I think trying to abstract away those complexities is where we'll succeed in making it seem like the experience and the broader products are better, but really just it's just an easier experience for all.
Yeah, definitely, man. Fair. And also, maybe for the newer traders, some of this stuff is a little complex. If they just kind of wanted to get involved with crypto trading and using DEXs, what would you kind of suggest that the best strategy would be for them, or the blueprint they should follow?
Yeah, I mean, it's always I've seen that this Rabby wallet has been better than MetaMask. Been looking at that. So yeah, I mean, just grabbing a mobile wallet like a like an Argent or a Pleno wallet or even like a MetaMask or a Zerion wallet, and then kind of just interacting all within the mobile wallet is probably going to be the easiest bet for most people. Picking up some tokens, participating in some yield pools, all I would say specifically on layer 2s for the ease of use and cost. And going from there is where I would push forward if I was new to the space. It's weird. It's like there's tons of opportunities right now, but they're like, are you buying like Toshi coin on base? I mean, maybe, yeah. But I mean, it just depends on what their kind of risk tolerance is and what their like investment goals are, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, dude. Sometimes you just got to bridge to base just to feel something. But kind of speaking of L2s, how are the DeFi opportunities on layer 2s different from like ETH and Alt 1s? And what should traders and DJs understand about the L2 ecosystem? I mean, you mentioned a couple of those highlights before, but what else?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally a lot of it exists in a similar capacity, but the key part is just like the that you're in a secure execution environment, that you're not going to get rugged, that these rollups are gonna, that you're gonna be able to move your funds off, that they are kind of just a safe execution environment. That's like a big thing for us. And then I think that the next DeFi primitives that are being built, of all the builders that I'm talking to, they're all building them on Arbitrum, Optimism, moving over to ZK, EVMs, and things like this. So I'm not sure specific ones right now, but I know that if you pay attention to dApps that are launching across these chains, there's going to be interesting primitives that are launching because the best builders that I've talked to in the space are wanting to launch there, and there's no doubt about that. So yeah, there's definitely more to come.
And I'll give real quick, just a quick safety tip for folks in the audience. For anyone that doesn't know, I was the CMO of Arbitrum, which is obviously, an L2 in the home of DeFi. Optimistic rollups obviously, prevent you from bridging back quickly. And so hence the invention of a lot of these cross-chain bridges. Hashflow is actually bridgeless intentionally, to protect folks. But my recommendation is, do your own research on bridges, because they tend to be the home of hacks. And a lot of times, those hacks are due more to kind of human error than they are the actual technology. And so, my go-to bridge back in the day, and probably still is Hot Protocol. And for those guys, it's a very simple bridge, very simple interface, and therefore less room for kind of human error to occur. But just know that basically what happens is, once you've bridged onto an optimistic rollup, if you want to bridge it off, you're basically, in a sense, getting an advance from a bridging company, and then they're taking, in a sense, a commission, because they're the ones that are now waiting for that to actually come to them, if that makes sense.
Definitely good to understand that for sure. And speaking of safety, Andy, security is always a top priority in this industry. How do you evaluate the security and privacy aspects of various blockchain protocols and applications when doing your research? Are there any patterns or red flags that you look for?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at a lot of like pitch decks and different websites and things, and I think like promoting big APRs is a big red flag. I think promoting like over-the-top testimonials is a big red flag. I think any sort of urgency or scarcity is also a big red flag. But I think a lot of the due diligence kind of just comes from the audits, like Andrew was saying, as well. So, as long as they're not only audited by like Surtech, then I think you're all right. If there's multiple audits, then you're generally safe. But again, this is why like I'm more bullish on the protocols on layer 2s, because they've either ported over from Ethereum, so are battle tested with that code, or have got audits and understand why they're there. Like devs want to build in execution environments that are decentralized and that have a lasting feature, and like mostly will recruit users. And so, just I think looking at the audits and then those kind of key red flags are some things that I look at, and then also like looking in the community and seeing how the community is on Discord. That's always a good kind of signal to seeing how they are interacting with people and what's going on.
I just wanted to give a quick thanks to Andy for doing the fudding on my behalf. Again, a single audit via Certic is not enough.
Yeah, no, definitely not. It's kind of become a meme, hasn't it?
Yeah, we that was literally the next question was should traders trust reports from Certec, but no worries. And yeah,
that's the
those
next
4
question.
trillion APR percents were definitely kind of crazy. What do you think about Trail of Bits? I know they're expensive, but worth the cost on those expensive audits?
I'm not really too sure what Trail of Bits is. Could you enlighten me on that?
Yeah, I can jump in. So Trail of Bits is kind of the blue chip standard. A lot of folks don't know the name because obviously they're not out there shilling themselves like folks releasing Viper insecurities publicly on Twitter live during an exploit. Do your own research, friends. But yeah, I mean they're kind of the creme de la creme. The issue with Trail of Bits is the timeline to get an audit from them and to get it done is a lot longer, right? Because they're very much in demand from like the blue chip companies. And then obviously it's a single team of people. And they're also doing so much due diligence that it just tends to take more time. But for me as a trader, because I'm also a trader in addition to a marketer, when I see a Trail of Bits audit, like I feel a lot more protected. And there's others, by the way, that I would put kind of maybe not at the same level as them, but maybe close, that are a little bit faster, maybe a little bit cheaper. But you already called out the one that I put at the bottom.
Nice.
Yeah, they're not all created the same, that's for sure. Well, Andy, look, everyone loves a good yield. Would you mind breaking down what the essential steps and considerations are for individuals looking to participate in yield farming and liquidity provision in DeFi?
Yeah, I mean, I usually start on like DeFi Llama, look around there, or there's a couple cool sites. But yeah, I mean, it's always a good idea to kind of just test out things with a small amount. I think making sure that whatever you're going into doesn't have any lockups is important. I think participating in like the current liquid staking narrative is super solid, and participating in some ETH staking and like kind of rehypothecating or doing whatever you want with ETH staking, I think is good. And yeah, looking for some solid yields, always understanding that if there's high yield, there's going to be risks associated. If Terra Luna, didn't teach you that, then I'm not sure what can. But anything with like crazy high risk, especially on stable coins with big yields, is generally going to be risky. But also like understanding like where the yield's coming from. Because if you don't understand where and why it's there, how it's coming from, how it's being generated, what the mechanism is, then I think there's a saying like, if you don't know where the yield's coming from, then you are the yield. It's pretty funny. So yeah,
couldn't be more true.
That's a good one right there, man. Like that's low-key a t-shirt. I love that. And let's keep rolling too, because we've got a few more questions. What are your thoughts on the current scalability issues that some DeFi platforms face? Like, how do you see the industry addressing these challenges beyond account abstraction?
Yeah, I think the scaling issues is part of the blockchain trilemma, right? Like it's tough to sacrifice decentralization for scale, and I think that's like the core issue with some of the alternative layer ones that that I have, and that's why we just wanted to shift focus towards rollups, right? Rollups will eventually have shared sequencers and go through a very gradual decentralization until kind of you see a very decentralized rollup infrastructure. But I think it's just like generally a question of what are you willing to sacrifice for scale. And I think a lot of like layer ones will advertise them being like the fastest layer ones, or like best, and you just kind of wonder like what they're sacrificing to get that speed. But I think also just like the tech that we have built currently is almost ready for scale. Like last bull run, we were definitely not ready because we didn't, like, Polygon had barely came out by the time like DeFi summer had kicked off. But now that we have all these different like scaling solutions, we have all these different ecosystems of DeFi happening simultaneously as ETH layer one is happening. But I fully expect mainnet to be super clogged again in the next bull. That shouldn't come as a big surprise to anybody. And I'm thinking of just the scaling as like this kind of constellation model where you've got all these different chains and ecosystems happening as if they were stars and all being interconnected through these different bridges and different cross-chain solutions. And so I just expect that to keep expanding into like a broader like Milky Way universe, and just kind of Ethereum mainnet being the hub, but not really necessarily being, you don't really need to be there. Especially as we get more and more off ramps from layer twos and from other ecosystems to like fiat and to bank accounts. I expect people to gradually never really use Ethereum layer one, especially if you're not like a giga whale. So I look forward to that kind of reality. And I expect there to be a lot more like layer two to layer two communication for data, for transactions, for cross rollup interoperability. And that's kind of how I foresee it happening.
Yeah,
And I think real quick, just to break it down for anyone that's not familiar, I mean, when we talk about the trilemma, I mean, we're talking about security, decentralization, scalability, and that's why a lot of folks, like myself, become Ethereum maxis, because Ethereum sacrificed scalability in order to preserve great security and great decentralization, which are such cornerstones of the industry. And then obviously going back to my days at Arbitrum, Optimism and other folks kind of in the L2 category, I mean, that's what they were created for, was to solve the trilemma. So those are the scalability layers. And to Andy's point, case in point, when we see a bull market and we see ETH gas prices surging, one of the jokes that I used to always say on Twitter was, Arbitrum equals Ethereum, because you could literally go onto layer twos, inherit the security and decentralization of Ethereum, and now have the scalability. And I think, just to go back to your other point before, where I think a lot of folks get nervous with some of the alt ones, self-included, is you go, well, what is the sacrifice to have all three if Ethereum didn't do it? And usually it's centralization. Usually the company is highly centralized, highly controlled, which for some, they may not care, but for others, that's a big issue.
Yeah.
By the way, you hope it's not security.
Yeah, Andy, you're definitely a good teacher, man, because you have some great analogies. The Milky Way, the scholarship DeFi. I mean, the best teachers I had in school always were able to break down complex subjects with analogies that were easy to understand. So definitely a professional, bro. I appreciate you sharing those. And kind of want to continue to ask you as well. We just talked about scalability, but do you kind of think scalability is DeFi's biggest hurdle for growth?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that and this whole security problem of just like these hacks, it's just tough when you have to like live in a world where you have to balance like code is law and regulatory, regulation, right? You got like the SEC and these big regulation entities coming down so hard. And so like as a DAO, you're like, do we, like how do we go, like, for example, like with this whole curve problem, like how do you go at this legally, right? Like you might have the solution that it would be the best, but like, is it a decentralized framework? Like, does that fit into the framework of decentralization that you're trying to keep for your, for your protocol? So I think like scalability and security are the two main ones. And I think security is probably more important currently, just because, yeah, like how do you solve like the keeping the space decentralized while, just trying to stop these bad actors from acting.
And I would just add to that, I mean, to Andy's point, like, most of you guys know this, but like I'm 90% kind, 10% savage. The only projects that I go for the jugular on are either because the project is trash or the founder is trash. And so, that being said, like, Curve is obviously somewhat of a competitor for us, but I really feel for those guys because I, to date, at least in this industry, hadn't seen a programming language exploited, because usually what'll happen is you'll see, the DApp, the quote unquote layer 3, bad code, bad developer, it gets hacked. Worser case scenario, the layer that it's built on, aka the layer 2, that gets hacked, and as a result, the project on top of it inherits that bad security. But this, Viper programming language exploit was like a whole nother level. So, I won't draw generalizations in terms of who I thought did it, but like this one is just, you've got to feel for those guys. And honestly, I'm just glad to see the whole industry really just, trying to help.
Definitely fair takes there. I mean, safety. I mean, it's constantly evolves, the hacks that we're seeing. Like you're saying, like a programming language got hacked. I mean, how can we possibly expect what's going to happen next? Never going to be bored in this space. Anyway, Andy, are there any chains in particular that you believe the space is sleeping on, and what community maybe are you most bullish on?
Yeah, I think everyone's sleeping on Starknet, man. Like, people don't realize how smart the people at Starknet are. They're just so fucking smart, like so ahead of the curve on like so many topics, and they're struggling with their programming language a bit and with some of their TPS recently, and they had some upgrades and things. But man, like that community is like so next level, and they're coming out with tokens and with airdrops and with a bunch of things coming out in the next, I don't know, like Q4, basically Q1 of next year too. They have got the EVM compatibility coming out. So yeah, people are sleeping on Starknet because there's so much other activity happening. But
I think, Andy, one thing I'd add to that, I agree with you, by the way. I think that's definitely a sleeper. Like, those guys are top tier developer talent out of Israel. And I'll tell you why I think people are sleeping on it. Having been over at Arbitrum myself, there are certain projects, usually alt ones, that distance themselves from Ethereum, distance themselves from Vitalik, don't signal their quote unquote allegiance to Ethereum. And I think, as we know, so many DeFi enjoyers are Ethereum maxis, right? So I think that probably, bit them in the foot a little bit. But I do agree with you. I think there's some good tech there and some good builders there.
Yeah, especially just not being EVM compatible in general is such a problem for these ecosystems, man.
Definitely, man.
But I mean, Vitalik was at the Starknet CC and talked, and I think Vitalik vibes with those guys because I think they're just super smart. And I think like they're trying to tackle scaling. I just think like other ZK ecosystems, right? Like they're building for like 5 years down the line, right? And which is it's just kind of tough.
Yeah, man, 5 years in crypto is basically 5,000 years, especially when stuff happens like week by week, as it does in this industry. But, planning long term, we need that. And, you do a lot of interviews. You've interviewed tons of builders, founders, and teams in this space. So what traits do you think the most successful people have in common? And what's some alpha you've picked up from talking to these people so far?
Yeah, I think a lot of successful people have just done things when they weren't comfortable. Like they fully jumped into something that they didn't really know and just put themselves in uncomfortable positions and just did it. I think a lot of them also I think a lot of the most successful founders have this drive. I think having just about 18 months or so of capital and in raise is like a really good spot to be as far as like keeping your drive up. I think a lot of it is just like right place at right time too. Like a lot of these people got lucky. I think a lot of them also balance like their mental health. I think they're they exercise and they balance their broader life somehow. They have hobbies and they kind of execute on that. Also, I think a bunch of people that I've talked to that are super successful are just kind of like slightly like just savage, for lack of a better word, like just kill or be killed, like have no excuses, have no time for rest type of thing, just wanting to get things done, will work harder than you and will execute better than you. I think a lot of them are skilled. I think people don't understand the importance of actually building skills. So I think a lot of these guys are skilled in online marketing, skilled in coding, skilled in being a leader, skilled in communication, skilled in systems design and standard operating procedures, and very skilled in kind of things that people just pass up on. I think also a big thing that I've seen is a lot of these founders stick to their guns. They don't just bite on the next trend. They kind of stick to what they know is right, but also simultaneously are willing to pivot at any moment and not be not be egotistical about their decision making and about where they want to go. If they're wrong, they're wrong, and they accept it and move forward. I think being agile and building a company in a way which is able to pivot is super, super solid. But you got to balance that out with kind of not just, like I said, jumping on to the next thing. And I think like the most important trait that I've seen, and from speaking with my friends who are doing other businesses, and also kind of these founders, is just having like this big vision, right? Like just having this vision, like looking out 10 years, being like, where do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? And then kind of scaling that out into quarterly goals, monthly goals, yearly goals, and just kind of setting up your vision and then setting up steps to get there. A lot of people, kind of struggle with that kind of thing. And that's something that sets a lot of people apart. So yeah, man.
Andy, a couple of things I just want to double click on that you mentioned. Right place, right time. I couldn't agree with you more. I think like one of the biggest pieces of alpha that I give folks is look at who was around for an ICO, right? Because a lot of projects, couldn't do ICOs, hence the evolution of airdrops. And so there are projects that I would argue are maybe artificially inflated or artificially presented as very successful companies, but they inherited the benefit of that ICO event. And you'll see things like someone's launching another token or things like that. Those to me are typically bearish signals, right? Or I look at kind of leadership leaving or leadership moving, because again, if they believe in the vision, why are they leaving, right? Those are a couple of indicators. The other one you called out, which candidly was a big reason I came to Hashflow, was this notion of experimentation. We have, I think we call them like wonderkins, but we have multiple of those folks that graduated college at 18 and went to Google and things like that. And what I find inside of Hashflow is a lot of why can't we hack that language and merge it with this language? Why can't we build a tool that does this? So I think that notion of experimentation is super important.
Nice.
Yeah, we're blessed to have a solid team at Hashflow. And, look, man, you talked about pivoting. Look at the benefit that you've already experienced personally from pivoting and what you've done with the Rollup. I'm a big exercise guy. I think that's important, too, for your mental health, and just getting the best version of yourself. There's not much better feeling than finishing a workout, in my opinion. And Andy, I kind of want to ask you as well, what interview did you learn the most from? Is there a Chad that we should all follow right now?
Man, that's good. Recently I did one with Brian from Layer Zero. That was stellar. The one from Leafy was really good. Philip, we talked about building a big company in that one. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are super DeFi focused, right? But I think I should do more of these and like start to ask these founders like about their life and about how they view things and their schedule and things like that. So you guys have inspired me to take the podcast into a realm of more like personal growth.
Yeah, I'm gonna double click on that one too, Andy. Brian at Layer Zero is probably one of the best developers in the entire industry, and he also, as you know, has a very close relationship with Luca and Pudgies. But if there was one person that I would kind of name it might be him.
Andy, you're crushing.
Yeah.
Man, if you could be comfortable on a space for 5-6 hours interviewing like person after person after person, I mean, everything else is light work, man. So I would just run with it. You're gonna absolutely crush it. And we just got a couple more questions for you, and then I'm sure you've got more people to onboard and more things to research. Speaking of onboarding the masses has been a saying we've heard time and time again in this industry. How do we actually bring the normies in? Is there been a strategy that you've been most successful at when onboarding noobs into crypto?
Yeah, I mean, number go up, right? Not the answer that you want to hear, but the reality, I think NFTs super as well. I think NFTs are very based. I think recreating the public perception of bro culture in crypto is big too. I think we need more women speculators in every bubble that I've read about in the past, like, and especially in a couple of these books, like Devil Take the Hindmost, women always played a big role in speculation, at least towards the latter part of bubbles. And so I think like bringing on more women and bringing on more women into tech generally is going to be big for crypto. But yeah, I mean, just number go up, making it easier for people, making NFTs better, and bringing in more females are all the are all four really good marketing.
100%. And what about stickiness, right? Like, we're all hoping for, adoption, right? Not just like, stopping by for a couple of weeks. Like, what do we need to actually get people to be like integrate this into their daily life?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the culture part comes in, right? Like, I think that's where more of you don't even know that you're using crypto, but you are type of thing. Like, that's why I view stickiness, right? Like, you're using payment rails that are using crypto, but you don't even know that you are. I'm not sure we see a world where people are like, maybe, but where we see a world where people are very, very excited to every day use crypto, right? Like, I'm not sure that we get that world, but if we do, I think it comes on like the more of kind of not knowing that you're using it, and that is going to be kind of a world where we have a lot of stickiness because the users are consistently using these online applications and these types of things and kind of not even knowing it. But I think like gamers is going to be a huge community for stickiness within crypto.
Yeah, man, kind of excited to see how that evolves because so far it's been, okay, right? We've got Dookie Dash and a couple other, things that were kind of cool, but definitely excited to see how that aspect of the industry evolves. And kind of want to.
Hey, Alan, real quick, Alpha. Couldn't agree more on the gaming front. If you guys see that little white circle with the H, give it a click.
There you go, little.
Soon. Very soon.
Very soon. Also, and just a couple more questions. I want to ask you about the Telegram and Discord trading bots. They've been hot recently. Are these just kind of another fad, or do you kind of foresee these tools really taking off?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm like a retired old man because I haven't participated in any of this, and I know that I'm missing out, but like I haven't even fired up Unibot, so forgive me for being a boomer. But been focused on the business side of things and content and travel and things, so I'll have to get back to you on that. But I think like generally it's really cool because I think they make the experience of trading on DEXs better. I just worry about the first principle security compromisation, but I haven't done enough research.
Hey, man, there's not enough time in the day to be a master of everything, so I completely understand that. And what about other tools? Are there any other tools that you recommend people become comfortable with if they want to start taking trading seriously?
Oh man, dude, I'm still such a boomer with this stuff. Like I still have to get off of MetaMask. It's so funny. Yeah, I mean, I just think being comfortable with like transacting on chain is huge. Like addresses and contracts and tokens and wallets and swaps and just trusting the system without needing to trust it because it's all just like code. Like I just think like executing on chain is something that takes a while to get used to, but like once you're used to it, it just becomes easy, and that's like a chasm that you have to cross in order to like really be able to get the most out of DeFi. So I think just being comfortable with executing on chain is going to be a huge thing for everybody.
That's some good advice, man. Because like we were talking about earlier, not the most intuitive thing in the world to navigate that. I guess the last thing we have for you, man, is what's kind of the plan for the rest of 2023? How do you see the Rollup evolving, and what will you be focused on personally?
Yeah, man. I mean, we're just gonna create so much educational content that we're not gonna know what to do with ourselves. So I'm really looking forward to that. We're gonna scale up our offerings and kind of grow that. I'm gonna grow my personal brand as much as I can. Really, just continue to do quality content, earn income from like influencer marketing. Maybe do a newsletter as well. I've got to get back in the trenches myself. and get back on chain and really start to get back going with my activity. I've just been chilling in like my set assets and some yield farms and some NFTs and just vibing, traveling, and kind of working on business. So yeah, I'm going to do a bit more of that and then start to share about what I'm doing more, potentially in a paid fashion. But yeah, we're just looking to scale the Rollup, scale our educational content, collaborate with more teams, and really grow that into a fully functioning business come Q4, Q1 of next year. I mean, my basic outlook right now is like stack as much cash as possible, which includes me going back to the States. I'm going to sell my car, buy a bunch of ETH with that, and just kind of stack as much ETH as possible. My general outlook right now is we are basically in the golden time, like we were in 2019. And I'm just trying to replicate the success that I had like 2-3 years ago, which is, stack a bunch of cash, buy a bunch of coins, create really good content, have that business grow even better this time, because it's not our first time around. Plus, I'll be going on my personal side this time. So I think 2024 is going to be huge, on the business side and on the portfolio side, and then into 2025 as well. And so that's my current outlook. And then, personally, I'm gonna head to Central America for August, or like the end of August, September, October into November, and just surf as much as I can and really elevate that to the next level. That is what I'm looking forward to, getting back into surfing, getting back into shape, and just taking that to the next level. Nicaragua, El Salvador, and just kind of like living like a bum for a bit, but just living cheap and vibing with the locals, surfing a lot, and just going deep work mode to set myself up for 2024, which I think is going to just be a crazy massive year. So personally and business wise, I just feel like we're like in this like stay down till you come up type of point. So I'm excited to be just chilling, but I know that things are going to be crazy in the next 6 to 18 months. I'm just optimistic and excited, and also like just chilling, man. Like feels good to just be able to chill. So yeah.
Look, man, you're an absolute Chad. We appreciate everything that you do for the space. Appreciate your time. Looking forward to see how the roll-up evolves as well. I know you're absolutely going to crush it. And man, I'm in the same boat as you, trying to stack that ETH right now. Not financial advice, but it's all about entries and exits, people. Those are the 2 E's you got to remember. But anyway, Andy, look, we appreciate your time. Enjoy the weekend. It's coming up soon. Basic Degenomics is brought to you by Hashflow. We have dope conversations with people like Andy every Thursday at 12 p.m. EST. So, Andrew, any final words before we let these people go?
I'm in a car right now, so peace.
Peace.
I'm always on the road, my
Thanks,
friends.
guys.
Bye.
You guys. All right, Andy, look, have a great day, man. We appreciate you joining us, and everybody definitely check out the roll-up. All right, everyone. Peace.